Parents of Reddit, what was the worst thing your kid ever did that made you momentarily wish you didn't have kids? My son was about 7. He discovered my wireless hot glue gun from my craft room I was using it that afternoon and stopped to make dinner. I didn't shut off the gun. Of course I didn't get to my craft space till much later and noticed it wasn't there. Turns out my son took it and hot glued all the electrical outlets he could find. I mean, all of Themis my 4-year-old daughter, at the time, slapped a 3-week-old newborn across the face immediately upon meeting her. My kids buttered our dog. You ever try to catch a freshly buttered chihuahua? To those that gave me silvers and golds, thank you from the bottom of my heart and the top of my lungs. I don't know what to do with it, but it made me smile a big fat smile, and I sure needed it today. I was talking to an older gentleman at a softball game. My 5-year-old son was standing by us, patiently listening. With no warning, he punched the old guy as hard as he could in the berries. The old guy collapsed in pain. I asked my son later why he did that. He had no explanation, just wanted to do it. My 3-year-old got diarrhea at the park this weekend. We were 1/2 mile walk from home with no bathroom in sight. I wanted to disappear. When my son was 4, we were in the checkout line at the grocery store. There was a very obese man 2 people ahead of us, and unfortunately my son spotted him. He points and says very loudly, "Mommy, look how fat that man is." My insides go cold. People around us are trying not to laugh. I say in a very firm voice, "That's not a nice thing to say." To which he replies, "But he's really fat." Then I tell him to just be quiet. It was the longest I've ever waited to check out. It was early morning, and I was sleeping in my bed. My 2-year-old woke up before me, and decided that she was going to wake me as well. She climbed out of her bed, went into the kitchen, made a set of stairs to get the kitchen knives, grabbed a knife, and headed to my bed. She climbed into my bed, and stabbed me an inch below my eye. I woke with her holding said knife over my head, and her giggling like the bride of Chucky. Upon my wedding ring to buy drugs. A phase of having constant tantrums and explosive meltdowns over absolutely everything, like hourly as long as she was awake, only lasted a few months. But it was exhausting and depressing, and every now and again just made me wish I'd never bothered. When my then 3/4-year-old daughter asked me very loudly why I don't have down boobies like the older lady in the swimming pool change room that was standing right next to us getting dressed, she actually laughed and said to enjoy my up boobies while I still had them, but I was still dying inside. My then 2-year-old puked, which landed in my open mouth. I wished the Goblin King would come for him then. Momentarily, I had to take my wife to the emergency room early one morning for intense stomach pain. Our kids were 2 and 3, and it was about 1 a.m., so they went with us. I packed a bag with snacks and toys, and loaded everyone up. It was the middle of the night when we got there, but we still had to park a significant distance from their entrance. When wife was back with the doc, my son, 2 years old, was running around and playing. He bumped his head lightly and started shrieking an ungodly banshee wail. I decided we would wait in the car and maybe drive around a little, and they'd hopefully go to sleep. So I'm carrying the bag and 2 struggling angry demon preschoolers the 1/4 mile to the car. At this point my son isn't shrieking, but he's not happy. We encountered an elderly couple, and my daughter, 3 years old, looks them dead in the face and says, "Hey, he's not my parent." I was exhausted and frustrated, and my arms were tired from carrying Themis. I didn't want to stop and have the conversation, and I panicked a little. I sped up, got to the car, loaded them up, and left in a hurry. I didn't get arrested, though. I was glad at the time. Now I'm kinda pissed that the old folks just let me go. When the moody teenage daughter was telling her friends at school that we didn't feed her and we were always angry with her and we hit her, and a teacher overheard and reported us to child services. So we had to be investigated for child neglect, and they had to speak with each of our kids and interview them independently. My wife and I are still reeling from that one. 3 dozen half-eaten sandwiches hidden around her bedroom. Monsieur, if she'd told us she didn't like them, that would have been fine. But to hide them? Holy smokes. I have 2 girls who are about 6 months apart in age. Adopted. One morning I woke up to the worst horror. The younger one managed to climb into the older one's crib, and then they proceeded to strip each other naked and paint each other and what they could of the crib and room in each other's garbage. Seeing them both standing there grinning gave the phrase garbage-eating grin a whole new meaning. It was a garbage tea morning, to say the least. My kids had a favorite chicken. It got picked on by the other chickens, so they protected it. One time I heard a pathetic noise coming out of a lidless 55-gallon drum. Monsieur, expecting a squirrel, I carefully glanced in and saw a big, 15 gallons, nursery pot, upside down. In there, I lifted it to find a wet, cold, and thoroughly miserable chicken standing on a few bricks surrounded by water. My kids had thoughtlessly trapped the chicken in there and then, being 5 and 2, had forgotten all about it. I thought was livid. Wife and I had a long talk about what it all meant, catastrophizing the whole thing, but in the end it was just 2 stupid kids not thinking things through because they didn't have the mental agency to understand their actions had far-reaching results. LPT, we're still fluffing, waiting for them to start thinking things through. My daughter, from the ages of about 3-months-old to 3 years old, screamed bloody murder every time she was put down, and only slept about an hour or 2 at a time. We found out later she has fairly severe autism, which explains it. But the sleep deprivation and lack of personal space ever. I couldn't even shower unless I wanted to listen to her scream like someone was murdering her. Was hellish. She's grown out of it now and is an awesome kid. Although she is now entering puberty and her emotions are starting to go a bit haywire. But I can sleep for 6 hours straight, which helps me deal with it much better. When my son giggled after headbutting me very hard in the temple, wanted to leave that small child out for the Jawas there for a bit. Oh, also every time he screeches like a velociraptor when he doesn't get his way. The other day, my 5-year-old walks up to a group of Indian women and loudly goes, "What's with the dots on your foreheads?" Pause, no response. "What's with the dots on your foreheads?" I drag him away saying it's part of their religion, blah blah blah, and he goes, "What's a religion?" Clearly nailing this whole parenting thing. Using his poop as a weapon to fling at kids in kindergarten. I wished if I used protection that day. I'm 15 weeks pregnant and have a 15-month-old. For those who haven't been pregnant before, the first trimester is brutal for exhaustion. With my first, I slept 10 hours a night and took a 2-hour nap every day. These days I'm incredibly lucky if I get 7 hours a night. And definitely no nap. So one day about a month ago I barely slept because I had insomnia at night. And my kid relentlessly wakes up between 5:30 a.m. and 6:30 a.m. This year I was dead on my feet. So I decided to try and lie down on the couch and maybe catch a cat nap while my kid played. He saw me lying on the couch, walked up to me and head-butted me as hard as he could right in the bridge of the nose. I heard a crunch and could have sworn it was broken, it hurt so badly. In that moment, I regretted every life decision that had led me to that point. My very mature adult response was to burst into hysterical tears and ask him why he's so mean to me. I think that freaked them out more than yelling would have. Mom, 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 mama, 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 mommy, mommy, mommy. Quote, not the worst thing, but sometimes you just wish you could be invisible. Or maybe just call their father's name for once. Waking me up in the middle of the fluffing night for 4 fluffing years and still going with no end in sight. This happened today. I live in Nebraska and in March we had a devastating flood. My basement was completely destroyed and my insurance company wouldn't cover any of it. Outside water, not inside water. So my husband and I spent the last 2.5 months and $6,000 fixing it ourselves. On Saturday we put the final finishing touches on it, ready to have company back over and live in our whole house again. Hooray! UNTILLLLL. This morning, my husband checked the sump as he usually does. Everything looked great, basement is dry and all systems go. That was 6:30 am. At 7 am my children all decided to go downstairs and watch a show. That's okay too. Except for when the sump pump stopped working and my basement flooded again, they waited 2 whole freaking hours while watching the water rise before coming upstairs to tell me. So yeah, today is when I wished I didn't have kids.